Welcome back to Grump's Barn, where today we have good news and we have bad news. Good news is I no longer have a fucking freeloader to work on. Yay! And the bad news is I no longer have the Freelander to work on. Fucking thing. Even after all that work I'd done it recently, I'd completely failed to spot that the rear subframe on it had turned to chocolate. Absolutely bollocks. Holes every fucking way. I can't be asked to get under it and film it because it's very wet around here at the moment. I'm not crawling around underneath that bloody thing. Not unnecessarily. And unfortunately, a new rear subframe for one of those, because it's not repairable, it's rotted every bloody where, so I can't just weld it up. New one is nearly £800. That'd be plus shipping. And it would also, if I was going to do that, then I'd have to replace all the mounts on the rear diff, even though it's never used. And all the rear suspension arms and that would all be absolutely fucked. They're all rotted solid anyway, so they'd all need replacing. And if I was going to do that, then it would be the rear suspension, and I'd rebuild the rear hubs. We're talking a minimum of £1,500, and the car's not worth that. Worth a grand tops. And that's in running order. But it's just beyond economic repair. So yep, it's going to that great breaker's yard in the sky. Eventually. For the moment it will just sit around here and rot for a bit until I can be asked to get rid of it. But never mind. Such is life. We shall have to get Mrs. Grump another motor at some point. At the moment, the more important thing is this thing here. Good old Defender. Now this bloody thing, I'm pissed off with this. In fact, I'm pissed off generally with the quality of fucking parts these days. As you know, I just had to replace both front bloody discs on the Freeloader. Not that they're ever going to get used now, but there you go. They both had to be replaced in less than a year and a half of being fitted because they'd both fallen apart. Now this front near side bloody disc here, I replaced it 2 years ago. In fact, I replaced every disc on this motor 2 years ago. Because they were the originals before that. They'd been on here for 27 years and they'd worn out, which is fair enough after 27 years. But now 2 years after fitting them, this disc here is fucking warped. It's bloody unbelievable. I shall not be buying Delphi parts again. They were supposed to be a good make, but there you go, they're obviously not anymore. They're obviously now all made of finest grade fucking Chinesium. But let's get this down, get it changed. Oh, and I've already done this job a week ago. This had an MOT. And I thought, yes, I shall change that disc, because the braking was obviously a little bit iffy. because of the slightly warped disc. Thankfully it is only slight, but it was still noticeable. So I ripped it all apart, took the disc off, grabbed the new disc that I had, because I knew I had a Discovery disc, and the Discovery discs, the front ones, are identical to all four of the discs on this thing. Then I found that the disc I had was not a front one, it was a rear one, and they are slightly different. Fucking sod's law. They're the same size and everything, but the bloody hub on them is not as deep. The hub on the Defender ones is 1/4 inch deeper. Bloody annoying. Right, I'm going to get this wheel off and get these discs out. As you can see, I've got Brembo ones this time around. See if they fucking last any better. Right, now first job to do once you got the wheel off. I'm sure I've done this before on here anyway, but like it, why not? Let's have it on it. Is to take off the 2 bolts that are holding this caliper in place. They're around behind it, they're a complete twat to get to. I don't know if you can see them. One at the top and one at the bottom. I'm roughly guessing with the camera there because I can't see a damn thing. But they are both on these, a 13mm. You need a bi-hex socket. The one that looks like that. 12 point rather than 6. And they should be thread locked on. So be prepared to struggle a little with them. Right, there we go, that's that off. Now the weight's supported. It doesn't bend up the bloody hard brake line there. That's the top of the so as you can see, that's why you need the bi-hex. Grip onto it nicely. Right, next we take off this cover. Might need a bit of prizing. Hold on a minute. Helps if you have the tools ready to do it, doesn't it? Thought I did. There we go. And then next, with that rubber cap off, we then undo this circlip here with a pair of circlip pliers. There's the head round there. Once you get that off, be sure to grab any shims that are behind it. There is one on here. I'm going to have to get a screwdriver to get that off, I think. Oh, hang on. Bloody thing. Yeah, I need 2 hands and a screwdriver to get that off. But make sure you remove any shims. And don't forget to put them back on when you do it back up again. Yeah, the shims are there. There you go, quite thick that one. They're there just to take up any end float in the shaft. Stop it wobbling about too much. Right, now you need a 17mm. Get these undone. Again, they should be thread locked in place. So they might be a little bit tight. Right, with those 5 off, you can now free up the driving flange. We put something underneath it. There are a couple of bits where you can get under it to knock it. But first, if you give it just a bit of a tap with a hammer or similar to loosen it off. And then just pry it off gently. if like me you want to keep the paper seal behind it in one piece, because this one's a pretty new one anyway. Obviously this was only done the other day. Right, I'm going to get that off. I can't do that with one hand. There we go, that's that slid off. If it's a bit stuck, you can always, because if you leave it in gear with this on the drive shaft, you can spin the wheel behind it, crack off any remains of gasket that are holding it in place. Often helps. Right, now next job is to undo this lovely washer here. I'm just going to have to get the chisel or something in there, knock it down so I can undo this big nut. I can't remember the size of these, are about 2 inch or just over, I think. Something like that. This nut should not be very tight, although you can find with some really old vehicles that they've where it's all dried out in there, they can rot on. Then there's wonderful fun to get off. Judicious amount of heat applied. Right, so you take off the first nut, pry out the retaining washer here. Which is a pain in the arse job to do one-handed. I don't even know why I'm filming it, to be honest. Pulling out a bloody metal washer. There we go. And then behind it, you got another nut, which also has to come off. Now that should not be tight at all. Just slightly, right. One little socket. There we go. That's the nut that sets the preload on your bearings. The other one's just a lock nut. Stop this one from coming out. And then once we've got this one off, you can then slide the entire hub assembly off, complete with your disc. Oh, these washers, by the way, they are reusable, but only if you flatten them out and don't bend the same one you already bent last time. The 2 tanks, you have to bend one down and one up. Don't bend the same ones twice. You can use them 2 or 3 times though, as long as I say you bend a different bit every time. But I won't be reusing that one because I've got new ones sitting here, a whole bloody pile of them. But you can in a pinch. The other day when I did this, because I knew I was going to be taking it apart again, I just flattened it out and reused it. But as I say, making sure I bent different bits. So now this will just slide off. Can't do it one-handed. You also need to note there's a big, very thick washer in here that needs to be loosened off. Get it all apart, otherwise you can jam it up. There we go, it's slid off. Obviously the outer bearing comes out with it, and there's that washer sitting on top of it, very thick one. Don't lose it, don't forget it. Alright, put that somewhere safe where it can't get covered in shit. Now this is going to go in the vise. Right, now, as this disc is no longer going to be used, it is now clamped up firmly in the vise. And I've got 5 bolts here to undo. They're all bi-hex again, but they're a 14mm in this, not a 13 like the other ones. So I have the socket down here somewhere. Oh, bloody hell, a minute. These can be complete and utter twats to get out. You could need heat and all sorts. If you are going to be doing that, you might want to take your bearings and everything out first. you don't really want any damage. Or in fact, if you're doing a job like this, you might as well change the bloody wheel bearings and the seals and everything. Obviously I'm not going to on this because they're only, what, 2 years old and they've done less than 9,000 miles, so they don't really need anything. So I'm just going to get those undone. I know they'll all undo fine because I only put them in there the other day. Again, they will be tight initially because they are all thread locked. Now comes the fun part, especially if your discs have been on there for a while. You need to persuade this disc to part company with the hub. Basically a press fit, so they're pretty tight. And what I use for this job is something that most people won't have. This bloody great metal bar. It was actually used on trains. The manual coupling bar that I borrowed from the railways 40 years ago. And it's come in very handy ever since. Right, now what I've got to do is lever between the two using a lump hammer. What you can also do is, especially if your disc is scrapped, which it usually is when you're taking them off, you can just hold the hub in the vise and beat the crap out of this, just whacking it at different points to loosen it up and break it off. Right, let's get it moving. There we go, see it's already cracked off between here. What I'll now do is move it round and pry it from the other side. Just move it around a few times till it eventually comes off. This one will come off pretty easily because, as I say, it's only been on there a week. And there we go, it's now off. You can see where it sits. This is the bit that presses inside the disc all the way around here. So I should give that a light clean off. This is now scrap. Wonderful. But it will take you, I'm sure, a lot longer to get yours off if you're doing this. Because when I replaced these 2 years ago, I did all 4 of them. And they were all complete and utter twats. Because they've been sitting there for 27 years. Right, new disc about to go on. Before you put the new disc on, clean up your bolts. Get the old thread lock off them. If you want to, you can put a tap through all the holes as well and clean the thread lock out of those. I should really. That's odd. This disc fitted straight on there. Normally they're a slight press fit. If they are a teeny bit tight, put all your bolts in and do them up in a sequential order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, around like that, and slowly draw it down on until it's tight. Then you can undo your bolts again, stick some thread lock on them and put them in properly, torque them down. Right, now the bolts are all cleaned up, back in there. I'll just give them a light wire brushing and clean out the threads a bit, anything that's stuck in there. What I do is put all 5 of the bolts in just loosely, just to make sure that when you do this you're not going to end up with it buggering about, because if you put just one bolt in and do it up tight, you might find you can't get another one in because the whole thing might have moved slightly. So get all 5 in there is what I do, then just take one out, put the thread lock on it and then tighten it down fully, and then do the next one and the next one and the next one. Do them obviously sequentially, one over here, one over there. I'll do that one, then that one, and that one. That's the way I do it anyway. Right, now they're all tight. I say tight, not really tight, they're just tightened down tight as I can get them while it was sitting on the top of the vise. I've now clamped the hub in the vise so I can now torque these up. Obviously in a diagonal sequence as ever, just to stop everything from hopefully warping that way. They're all torqued down. Now I should take it out of there and slide it back on the stub axle. Now bear in mind, if you're pushing them back on, you will find that they will usually jam up slightly where the hub seal here, where the seal here that runs on this land at the back needs to be given a very slight push to get it over. It can be a little bit sticky. I can't film it because I need both hands to do this. Bugger, I forgot to film that. Oh well. I've just put the bearing back in. I slung a little bit of extra grease into it, not that it needs it, but any extra grease doesn't hurt. Once it gets up to temperature, it runs throughout both the bearings anyway. And this washer, the big fat washer that sits on the back of that bearing, has a flat on it to coincide with the flat on the actual stub axle. Right, now once you've done that, you can then put your retainer back on, the first of the nuts. And I don't think I can do this one-handed because these things can be a bit awkward. You have to hold them flat. Oh, hang on, there we go. Now what I do with these to set the preload is probably wrong. I don't know. What I've always done. I tighten down this nut with the socket until it's tight, and then I back it off by one flat. And that's what I leave it set as. And I've been doing that for, fuck me, too long now. It's always worked perfectly. Alright. Let me just tighten that down and loosen it off slightly. Alright, when you've tightened it down and I say loosened it off very slightly, so I loosened it off by one flat, then it should be a nice easy spin with absolutely no buggering about anywhere around it, and there should be absolutely no play in it that you can feel with your hands. That's the way, as I say, I've been doing it for years, and that's the way I shall carry on doing it. Other methods are available. Right, now we've got that on, time to put the new washer on. There we go. Remembering that there is a flat on the bottom of this sub axle. And once we've done that, we can then do this one up. Oh, before you put that on, let me show you. When you whack that washer on there, make a mental note. I don't know if I can get this bloody thing back off again easily. Hang on a minute. Make a mental note of where these flats are, because you're going to need to bend part of this over one of them. And if you know roughly where it is, you can bend it in the right place to catch it and keep it stuck there. Nothing worse than putting it on there, going to bend it over, and you can't actually see or remember where the hell the flats were, because you need to bend this over to actually catch one of those flats, stop it undoing. Right, I need to put that on with both ends. Right, when you got the second one on, tighten it down and torque it up to the specified torque. I can't remember what the hell it is. I just tighten it to a certain torque that I've always done. And then make sure everything is still spinning freely. The tightening that down should make no difference. But if you haven't done something right, it could tighten it up. Tighten up the bearings and preload on the bearings, and you don't want that. So if it does suddenly go tight, take it apart again. Find out what you've done wrong. Right, now I'm going to get a cold chisel on this top here, bend that down, and then I'm going to come around the other side here somewhere and bend this up. So it's touching this, and so the other one's touching flat against the bottom nut. Stop them undoing in use. There we go. Top one's bent down, bottom one's bent up. And that will stop those from turning and undoing themselves, because you don't want that. Right, next, I'll quickly clean up these bolts that go in here. You may need a new paper gasket for on here. That one's fine. And just to help it see, I'm going to put a smear of grease around here, just a smear, and I mean smear, nothing more. This helps it squidge against it and get the water out. In fact, let's slide this back on. This is fine. Smear of grease is already on there. Actually, I've just looked from where I smeared it last time. Alright, and to line up the holes, you can just move the hub around until they're lined up. And again, like I did with the other one on the disc, I will put all of the bolts into their holes loosely initially. Make sure it all lines up and stays lined up, and then just take them out one at a time before doing them up. But I will only be doing 4 up initially. The reason for that will become clear in a minute. Right, those are tightened down, but they're not fully torqued yet. We should do that in a moment once I've done this. Don't forget, before you put your circlip back on, to put your shim back on, if it has them. If it has 2 shims, they're stuck together, I've just noticed. You put them back on first, then your circlip. I need to get my circlip pliers, and I can't do that with one hand. Right, there we go. That is now on, and all 5 bolts back in and torqued down. Definitely don't forget to put a little bit of thread lock on those, because I have had those bastards undo in the past when I've forgotten. You learn from your mistakes. Sometimes. Right. Now all I need to do is put the rubber cap back on. I always put grease inside mine, because I've had one of these dry out before now completely, and everything rusted inside. There we go. Right, now clean the disc off with some brake cleaner, and then get this caliper on there. I've already pushed the brake shoes back a little bit, or the pads back a bit when I was before I took it off. Forgot to mention that. Shouldn't need too much on this one anyway, because it was virtually a new bloody disc. Right, the disc is clean. I've now slid the caliper back on. I've temporarily put the bottom bolt in just loosely, so I can have a good chance of getting the top one in. These can be a twat to line up. A complete and utter twat, but there again, all calipers are when they're like this. Because you can't see round there to the two holes that are supposed to line up. Well, at least I can't anyway, I'm too bloody big. Right, I'm going to get a bolt. Got cleaned up. Chuck a bit of thread lock on it. And whack it in this top hole. Then once that one's in, I'll take the bottom one out and put it back in again with some thread lock on it. And then torque them both down. There we go, all back together. The nice new disc. The only thing I'm going to have to do is go and pump the brake pedal a few times just to bring the pistons back forward so the pads are touching the new disc. But that is it. We have to go back on and we're done. Right, that's it for this one. Ah, bloody hell. Nice easy job, but only easy because I did it a week ago. Everything was loose. Well, not loose, you understand what I mean. Not loose at all. Still very tight. Tight, but not tight enough. What the fuck am I talking about? I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of all this for now. The only other thing I've got to do on this Defender is there's a few rusty bits here and there that need a bit of tied up. Bit there, bit on that door, there's a bit the other side on some of the excuse me, some of the capping and stuff. I could just tighten that up. There's a bit on the front as well on the bull bar and things, but apart from that, that's it motor-wise for the minute. So the next thing I should be doing is ripping apart my mini mill, that horrible Chinese pile of shit, taking out the nylon gears and replacing them with proper bloody metal ones. So that will probably be the next video on here. Because I've got to get on with this fucking thing. Poor thing, here it is sitting here doing absolutely fuck all still. And still without a front end. Because that front end requires engineering. And I'm no engineer. I'm hardly a mechanic, never mind an engineer. But I shall be engineering it. Because, well, why not? Someone's got to do it. Anywho, that'll do for now. Take care, people, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.